Ready? Call the meeting in order. The agenda Oromocto Council and Committee meeting Tuesday, 19th of May, 2026 at 5:30 p.m. at the Oromocto Municipal Building. I'll call for a mover for approval of the agenda. Deputy Mayor Mawini, seconder. Councillor Kirkbride. Questions? All in favor? Contrary? Motion carried. No presentations or delegations. So we'll break down to the monthly departmental reports. And I'll open that up so I can see them. We'll start with the Department of Engineering and Public Works. Any questions, comments, or concerns? None? Okay. We move on to the Finance Committee. Or Department of Finance, I'm sorry. Any comments or concerns? We'll move on to the Recreation and Tourism. Jackie's here, so is any comments or concerns or questions? You got those? We'll move to the Planning and Compliance Department. None? Okay, we'll move to the Oromocto Fire Department. No comments or concerns? We'll move to the Department of Human Resources. Comments or concerns? All right. And we'll go to the Department of Corporate Services. No comments or concerns. The last one is Clerk's Office. Any questions or comments? None. All right. We'll move on to administration. We'll start with 5A, the Trailblazers Recreation and Tourism. And Jackie Dunn is here to fill us in.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is just a continuation of our request for decision at last month's committee and council committee. I don't think there's much new in here. Council just had asked at that time to get a little bit more information, another option regards to the trail options. I will say that, or point out that at actually probably during last CIC, the assistant clerk posted about contacting off-road enforcement with a non-emergency number to report anything, and we received quite a few comments just on that post. So we had about 70 comments, and I just wanted to kind of point that out and highlight a few things just so that I guess just kind of emphasizes what we discussed. So I guess just with a bit of online emphasis on that. So just to kind of reiterate what we talked about, there was comments about safety of the high speeds of the motorized vehicles. Again, I don't think many had any issues with anybody who respectively drove down the trail. It's one of the ones that were going quite quickly. And so there was some fear of that, but then some people pointed out that there really isn't a high number of motorized versus non-motorized accidents. And then others mentioned the inefficiency of the barriers to stop illegal use, or they just forcing the motorized vehicles to reroute along streets, which we're starting to see more right now. And that in many cases, barriers actually hindered accessibility and legitimate use, especially those with bike trailers. So just I thought it was very, I guess, timely that we received all those and kind of just backed up exactly what was discussed and show that the difficulty in finding a good solution to the trail misuse by some of the motorized vehicles. But just to follow up, requesting press for decision regards what we should be doing timing for the existing concrete barriers. So one option is to they be installed as in previous years. Option two is recommend not installing or removing the ones that have already been up, creating some alternatives. And number three is to do kind of a fixture of the two that we would keep the place for barriers along most of the locations, but perhaps moving one or two, especially in the areas, for example, by Deer Park and Wood Street, where they're very close together. Maybe that would help a little bit in regards to those that are going through that they have to dismount into such close areas, but then it's still block majority of the trails. Regardless, I would just recommend to council, regardless of the decision, that we revisit this once we have a finalized plan for active transportation and trails consultant. Currently until about 8 p.m. Our Trace Planning is down at the Business Center for our open house in regards to this. So council has time, please drop in, or if you haven't already. We're getting a fair amount of response to our online survey. They said they were up over 250, which is fairly good. We know it's a hot topic, and we're getting both sides of that. And we are implementing some of the alternative options that we did discuss regardless, which should increase the promotion of the off-road enforcement, the non-emergency number, the online reporting tool. And we are currently looking at grant for approved trail signage. So I can entertain any questions from council if you have any. Otherwise, I'm just looking for a directive from council on the barriers, please.
Council Kirkbride?
Thank you, Your Worship. Do we have are there any barriers up right now?
Yes.
There are.
Yes.
Okay. Because they're not stopping the motorcycles, that's on the trails, because they are skidding, the motorcycles are skidding, so they're bicycling. One of my weekend has actually really nothing to do is because it is getting worse, extremely worse. There's basically a gang of 8 who are going up and down McDonald Avenue. Actually, I just got an email before council started from one of our residents who lives who should I complain about? The very dangerous, extremely loud, constant problem of 4-wheelers speeding up from the trail onto the gravel path that runs behind Rankin Court onto McDonald Avenue. They're flying down McDonald Avenue, then they cut down Culver Street and cut down Gardner Street. And then they go down, lanes down so they can get to the trail. And through Deer Park, as our new councillor would be very easy to be able to tell you because he lives there. I know I've called once myself, no answer from either number, the RCMP or enforcement. No answer. Okay. On hold with the RCMP for almost 6 minutes and 28 seconds. No answer. No answer from the enforcement alert number. Call them both. No answer. So if our residents aren't getting any response, they're not gonna call.
That's the problem.
It is a big problem. It is a big problem because one, for example, almost in a school bus on my street one morning, my kid actually has a photo of it, sent it to me. The young man, it's the actual special needs bus. It stops 2 doors down from my house, and the man almost hit the bus. The bus was parked, picking up the child. Classic going. So it would have been 8 o'clock in the morning. It's a problem. It's a big problem. Long weekend this weekend. I probably could have called at least 25 times. And I know they say they're patrolling, and I've never seen them, and I know I'm not looking out the window all the time. But if they're traveling that much, sooner or later, somebody's got to see them.
Yeah, for sure.
In an RCMP vehicle, and they're not. So, and they can go pretty much every single day right now, as soon as they get home from school. Anywhere from 4:30 to 6 o'clock.
4:30 to
6 on the road.
Right.
And they don't come back till 10, 11 o'clock at night. There's one that goes down my street almost every morning, 7:20. As I see them going to school.
Really?
Yeah. It's a problem. It's a problem.
Oh, it's a big problem.
So I don't really know what to do about the barriers. I really don't know.
Councillor, when you say you see them, you see them on the road?
On the road and the trails, both. And I mean, I benefited both because I live on the trail as well. And so I see them both.
No, that's just clear.
Yeah,
I'm just,
I see them both.
because there are currently 5 barricades along the trail.
Yeah.
So if they're on the trail, then they're.
Somehow they are.
Yeah.
Somehow they are. Now, I've only seen a couple 4-wheelers also on the trail. It's mostly the dirt bikes.
Correct.
And some of them, I will say one thing, they can drive. I mean, I watched one go through the lights of Boston Road right on one wheel.
I seen one the other night do that.
Yeah.
And he wasn't that big.
It's impressive. I'm not gonna deny they can drive. But I also think it's becoming a problem. It really, really is. I'm worried that either them or someone else is gonna get hurt. And, because I'll say, I bet you a good group of them are probably students at our school. And I don't want anything to happen to any them or anyone else. And, but it's becoming a problem. And I see the chatter online as well, and, 90% of the people say they just drive reasonably, that's a great word, reasonably. And no one probably say anything.
That's it, but they're not getting any guidance, they're just get on and go,
Not driving reasonably. Driving dangerously.
even in Oromocto West, they're that way.
Yeah,
Getting worse and worse in
it's
Oromocto West.
getting worse everywhere.
Councillor Daw?
Thank you, Bishop. I was down for a brief period and just while talking to residents not far from Councillor Kirkbride's place, and we saw three. And the gentleman, the young fella on the four-wheeler, I had to stop and think what difference between them is, came down Rankin, the sidewalk by Rankin, and tore around in a wheelie in the clouds, so you couldn't miss him because you heard him. And I said to Jim, I said, and there's our problem. I said, 95% of the people, you know, will gladly use it. I've been out talking to quite a few ATVers and asking people if they are ATVers where I'm volunteering, and I'm getting quite an eye opening for it. And I said to a couple, like, who are willing and understand why we want to open it up. They think that the people that are zipping through real quick would slow down if it's legal. I said, I think 95% of the people would, but see those three? Those are the ones we're having the problems with. I said, how do we correct that? We're not going to correct that. And opening up barriers isn't going to correct it either. It's going to give them freewheeling time down through. And the guy in the four-wheeler, he was zipping quick, really quick. And they're saying, you're right, it's getting terrible in through Lansdowne, McDonald Avenue, right down to the Onondaga. Like they come down through Wasis and zip down through Onondaga and get on that trail, and you can hear them anywhere between 4, 8, or 9, sometimes even later. And with summer coming, we're going to have a problem. Now, one of the solutions was we were talking about how we rectified Anniversary Park. And we had security that we paid for. And I said, well, we went through trials and tribulations to get that, but it did help. And because they're saying that the RCMP aren't doing anything, I said, they can't do anything there. And I said, but maybe there are other alternatives to what we can do to deter them. But I said, rest assured that we're working on it now. And it just happened that when I left there to come here, RCMP went and turned down on the Onondaga Street. And I just sort of smiled and I thought, well, I haven't seen you around there very much, and I'm there quite often. So I don't know. I said I kind of would like to have the barriers up, but for the greater percentage of them, I'm thinking maybe if we can deter them in another way, we're still going to get the ones on the other end of Onondaga do what they continually do. So I'm torn like Councillor Kirkbride.
And if they can't get on the trails, it could just gonna be on the street.
They're coming down the streets. Yeah.
They're on the streets in Oromocto West now, doing wheelies and up the road and going fast.
But this is where we need,
Councillor Kirk.
this is where we need some really, I'll say, great support from those other agencies.
Councillor Carr.
You're also the community itself. Like,
Yeah.
these individuals often have big area. And the neighbors know where the bikes come from. But
Well, that's
the
the thing.
community's had enough communities to speak up as well. I mean, a lot of people have. Fortunately, it's not the neighbors of the people. I suspect they also fear retaliation. I suspect where it comes from. I understand that, but the community itself needs to start to stand up for themselves. Not in the sense of going out and trying to enforce rules. That's not at all acceptable, but reporting with, it's a small enough community, we know where most of these bikes are.
Yeah,
Fine,
and if we
But
can
you
get
understand.
pictures of them and the times, that'll help with the RCMP a little bit.
it helps.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Worship. I was going to say exactly what Councillor Carr just said, that when talking about this kind of topic, it really comes down to the issue of safety. And the issue of safety, whether it be for those walking on the trail or the safety of those who are going to be on the street, not expecting an all-terrain vehicle to be there. But I do think the key in a lot of this is the identification of those doing it. in some ways, it may be difficult to identify them, but at the end of the day, it really is not that difficult to identify who they are. Because it tends to be the same people over and over and over again. I do know that if you can identify, if we can encourage people to identify where these vehicles are coming from, 100%, I can guarantee you that the RCMP will visit their homes. I have had several situations, let's say, whether it be an all-terrain vehicle, whether or not it be an actual automobile where someone is driving in an inappropriate manner, and you can identify the home in which it comes from. The RCMP will go, will have conversations, and if it does repeat, we'll give tickets. So I think the problem with, this kind of discussion of barriers or no barriers, it's almost without the enforcement or identification of where these people are coming from. It's, do you want them ripping down the trail or do you want them ripping down the road? Which is really at the end of the day, we don't want either, which is the reason why we really, really need to encourage people to identify where they are coming from. Because we also know that RCMP are not going to click on the lights and engage in a high-speed pursuit with an ATV through town. They just do not have the mechanism or the ability within their policies to do so. So that's the reason why I do really believe that identification of where they are coming from is really important. I can tell you that the RCMP did pull over a motorbike on Carpenter on Saturday night.
Oh, really?
Because just like everything else that's on Facebook, so was that. And so now the entire community in Oromocto West knows that the RCMP pulled over a motorbike on Saturday night. Now, they were fortunate in the sense that was a compliant individual who was willing to pull over. Because we know that certainly some of them would not. So anyway, that's I'm more than happy to go along with whatever my colleagues in Ward 1 would like, because it is adjacent to the citizens in their ward.
Council Von Richter?
And
Thank you, worship. A lot of discussion, there is no great solution to this problem. My fear though, as we promote the trails, as we develop a trail use plan, we hope it gets busier, as more people use them, our population is aging. It's only a matter of time before we have a medical incident on those trails. If we have these barriers up and an ambulance can't get down there, or a service vehicle to pick somebody up or find somebody, that's what keeps me up at night, is because it appears the barriers are not working. They're going around them, they're making a mess, they're digging holes, bringing in trucks and pulling shit. They're not working. So if they're not working for the sake of safety, I'd rather remove them all. At least then we have the ability to get people help if they need it on the trail. That may increase bad usage of the trail. I don't know, but that's what I worry about, is as they get busier and busier, we need to have the ability to get the people on those trails.
Well, it's definitely a problem. And it has been for years, but it seemed to be worse this year than ever.
Your worship, I can, there's two things at heart here. One is a policing issue, which none of us in this room have the authority in terms of the police, but I can tell you they are working hard to try to find those people when we're giving them enough information to find them. So if you have a time, a place, an address, they absolutely are trying to determine who those people are, and have conversations or issue tickets. That's just going to be the case from now until kingdom come, unfortunately. But that's the role of the police and the policing issue. The one we're trying to deal with from a barricade is to just reflect what we think the majority of people want. And then when it comes to, that ease of access to and from different areas and recreational assets, which I can appreciate. We want to try to help a policing issue by putting barriers up, but they simply aren't working. I will tell you, there's one thing that is complicating this year that's putting more people out on the street that probably don't want to be, is the closure of the base properties. So that is causing us some issues because there's now no way to get from the bottom of town to the trail at the top of town without being on the road because the base won't let you go through their property anymore. So that is causing more traffic that people are seeing on the road. I do believe most of that traffic, the people don't want to be there, but they have no way else to get to the trail for which they're allowed to be on at the top of town. And so the natural shortcut when you're at the bottom of town, it's coming in from Burton to not be able to get to the top of town is to go as fast as you can through town to get to the bridge. And that's, I think, where we're seeing some of that increase. So we do have the RCMP committed to trying to do their best when they can. Naturally, they cannot chase people. They will not chase people. And people know this, right? I mean, the people who want to do this are going to do it, and they're going to not stop, and they're just going to. And I will keep at it. There's no question that that's a priority of RCMP, and we meet with them every year and give them priorities, and that's always one of them. So they'll continue to do the best they can as their policies allow. And you know, so on the other foot, it's just again, if we can get as much information, I'm happy to pass it along. And they are trying to seek and chase down the known culprits if they can. But as far as barriers go, we just have to make a conscientious decision whether we want to continue to put barriers up or not, or for now come to some kind of, you know, happy medium and see if that helps until such times we have some more explicit detail in our active transportation plans that'll be coming out here over the summer.
Councilor Carr?
I know you mentioned looking for grants for signage. My worry in several sections of our ward is that the length of time you're on the trail, they really do pick up speed. So if the barriers aren't there, if that's the decision, that's fine. I don't think they're going to. Visually, people like the looks of them because they think they are. But my worry is you get very used to it. It's an old rail bed. It's a long, straight, flat stretch, and all of a sudden you're crossing a paved road. So there's often not lighting, and I don't know what signage is like on a lot of the crossings because I know our MLA, Mr. Cooman, in the far end of our ward that's been on his priority list is trying to get paint put on the roads crossings from DTI, so at least the drivers are aware there's a potential that a bike might come flying. Even cyclists with the electric bikes are moving at quite a pace, and a lot of the time the stop signs are stolen or they're knocked down, nailed to a tree, and the foliage is covering them. And with the barrier missing, that at least is a visual for somebody traversing the trail, knowing that there's a motorized vehicle, there's an actual road coming. So concerned, I guess I don't know. You probably say you have an update on that.
No. So I will just say that I haven't received a report from the Trace Consulting yet, but in the council section, they showed some different options of barriers that we could put that would be more, I guess, I'll compare them to a speed bump.
No warning that, hey,
No,
it's coming.
No, it's like a speed bump that would force the rider to slow down. So those would be still placed potentially where the other ones are, but it forces, it funnels everyone to slow down, regardless if you're on a e-bike or whatever the scenario would be. And they would be throughout the trail system. I've seen them in other ones, right? And they're just slow down anyone who might be going too quickly. I walked across the Billthorpe walking bridge on the weekend and had just bicyclists flying by.
Yeah.
Right, that we're going way more than the posted speed limit. In regards to signage, we are looking at fairly large signages at the 655 crossing, Nevers Road crossing on both sides, so you know which streets cut that through, you're coming through that. There'll be a warning throughout the whole system from Fredericton all the way down to certain in regards to what you can and can't do trails, as well as where you are on the trail, how close you are, and okay, you're coming up to where there might be a crossing.
I think that's long advance warning to be good,
Exactly.
because the speeds do like make sense in some of the stretches, but not. I was
And some of those areas, right, and in some areas where you are, it is legal for snowmobiles, so that's where those slowing down barriers come into effect. I know Councillor Dow, you were talking similar to the ones that we saw in that session, but having them separate a little bit, so you have to kind of, no matter what, but you still can get through with the baby carriage in the back, right? Those are kind of things where you have to slow down no matter what you're in to get around it, right? But right now, those vehicles, you know, you're probably gonna pick them up, but here you kind of go and you gotta go around this way and you purposely slow everybody down for that, right? But those are just options. Like I said, I just have the base that happened in the council session that they showed.
I just hate somebody to come across, you know, you're cruising along nice and you just don't know the paper is coming, you kind of get into a zone and you're biking for a kilometer and a half and all of a sudden there's a 70 zone crossing you.
Right. So the signage, situation we're looking at is separate from that. That's something that CAO and I've been working with the city, to try to create a good standard for that. But then we'll also have recommendations from planning that we would go through, and then as council can decide what of those recommendations that we want to move forward with at that time.
Thank you.
Councillor Dodge?
Thank you, Worship. Just two things, Jackie. One is to address, Council Mawin, Deputy Mayor Mawini's. I was standing in that Hazen Center and there's no way I could have got the phone out of my purse and took a picture of those little darlings. That's how quick they went. So I can imagine when we hear people say, well, they were going so fast, I couldn't get their picture. That was the reality. It sounds like it should be easy. It's not. Just a follow up on that. If there was some way, I know we talked about it before, getting information out about calling the RCMP, and I know people are hesitant. I talked to a couple down there and they said they called, but you know, nothing. I said, the problem with that is you have to continue to call. So, you know, when the RCMP talks to us about the data they collect, I was exchanging that information and they said, well, we're going to start calling. I said, the more information they have and the places that they know where these traffics are, then they can pinpoint them. They're not driving around looking for them. They need to know where they are. So that's one thing that I think if we can encourage that or put it up somehow or get information out about that, or the RCMP do it, whoever responsible for it, would help maybe a bit, at least informing the residents what they can do. And the other thing about the barriers, I had a talk with Tim down there, the staggered barriers, and one of the things he mentioned was about the vehicles, having the swerve of the things to be able to get emergency vehicles through it. He said it's one thing to have them set, he said, so that the ATVers or the four-wheelers or the whatever can get have to slow down, but he said it's the angle for a truck to come in or a ambulance to come in would be different. And I said, I'm sure that you'll be able to work out something that would be a compromise to allow whatever vehicles need to be there and yet slow the traffic down. But I never even thought of that angle. I just saw those staggered, thought, whoa, that's a better idea to have them staggered. And they're good work. They're doing good.
Councillor Kirkbride?
Thank you, Worship. Actually, I'll just follow up, is that the speed bump, that's what we're calling it. But that idea does interest me. That idea does interest me. I would love to see a picture of them.
I can get one. That was presented at the council sessions. But you will see that in the report from that when it's done. That was just some idea, to kind of get some different thoughts going. And that might be the way we look at things is, you know, there still would be saying they're not allowed on the trails, but at least you have something out there for the ones that are doing it illegally, that at least it's forcing them to just have to slow down regardless. So it wouldn't be a recommendation that we say over trails for everyone. However, you know, if you are on there legal, it's gonna slow you down. And I think, Councillor, you had mentioned too, that in your area, people have talked about even just some of the e-bikes coming up on you quickly and fast, so that would slow everyone down regardless of what mode of transportation they have in there, so.
And my second part was the RCMP do know where the problems are. These problems have been reported many times. They've been reported by me, you, right in council chambers to them. They know where the problems are, so that's.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Worship. And I think when I had made that comment earlier, that's kind of what I was referring to, is that if it is known, I was not referring to if they were at full tilt, that you could get a picture of a license plate, because we know that that's not possible. But it is often known where they are either going home to or coming out from, or when they stop to chit chat or whatever, you can get descriptions. I do think that part of the messaging also, if we're gonna put out to the community, is in relation to reporting, and that when you report, it can be reported anonymously. Because there's a lot of people who feel as though that kind of someone earlier said the hesitation of reporting is the fear of retribution. And the fear of something then being done to me. And so I think it's important that people know that they can
Let's see,
report that.
they were gonna take my report unless I gave them my name.
Well, they would not, okay.
Correct. And they asked me if I would testify in court, and I said no. For exact that fear.
Because I know that if you send an email directly to the sergeant, then you don't have to provide your name and all that kind of stuff, so.
No, let's just call them what I call the line.
Yeah, if you call it,
The line.
The predicate line.
You have to give your name.
they'll ask for your name.
But I think also that if you ask them if your name is going to be shared, they will tell you that your
That's
name
my-
isn't going
that's
to
my
be shared.
fault. Nope, cancel.
Yeah. But yes, of course, if you're going to court, then you would have to.
Okay, so we have three options. Any comments or questions on the options? Because we need to have an option, one of the three.
I'll start if you want.
Yep.
I'm gonna vote for option 3, placement of the barriers in majority of existing locations. However, perhaps removing some along the trail routes several times, the cyclists must dismount. And great examples were the two at Deer Park and the two at Wood Street. Yeah. And then, but speaking of the one that's on the far side of the reserve, has it ever been opened up or they still have it closed?
They still have closed.
The,
They open?
Are we gonna?
Okay, I checked, they were.
they were open on the weekend,
Where that?
Okay.
yeah,
Thank you.
and they've been
Prior
open,
to that, they were.
and they've been open for a while, but when I go down, I have noticed that.
Okay, so how many for motion 3? There's 2. Okay, anyone with motion 2? 4 for motion 2. And for motion 1.
That's a quick question, not that it won't sway my vote, have we got any commitment from anybody at our CMP level? There was talk of having another trail enforcement unit reestablished. There was a hope, and I've never heard whether it's happening, what stage we're at, do we have any commitments? And I wouldn't believe it until the money's been spent or it's in writing somewhere, but do we have anything on that? There are a lot of hopes, but hopes doesn't put people on the ground with lights.
Last time I was talking to them, they said this issue is all over the province.
Right.
So they're all over the province and they only have 1 unit. So they said they would probably could get one, but they don't know when.
And that's our CMP or off-road enforcement.
Yeah.
That's off-road vehicle.
Okay, off-road.
The
Sergeant Escalier mentioned at our also hall meeting that he was hoping from have a trail, so RCMP on bikes.
Yeah.
Not motorized, just bicycle, but so there's a presence on the trail. We haven't heard anything more about that.
So the update on that is they are working on it. The lag has been, apparently their protocols require that people have to have training
Special training. Yeah.
before they are able to mount bikes.
Right.
So that is in the works. They are committed to it. But like anything else, we've got to, gotta get a few people trained before they're allowed to ride bikes.
Essentially, no right now. We don't have a hard time that says they will be active as a.
We don't have an active date as of yet, but yeah, I mean, I'll follow up with them this week because, they are aware that we wanna have some presence there. It just, yeah, for whatever reason, apparently they need training.
That's takes me kind of.
Policy forever. Policy forever.
That's what else.
Thank you. I just thought of it when we were talking about those gates open, they have been open at least several weeks. But I did notice at the same time, and it's just a question out of interest, is behind Sobeys, the trail has got the fence across it.
that land belongs to Sobeys, not the
Yeah.
town.
Oh, so how are they joining the Sentinel Trail?
They are, they aren't the,
You have to walk down the highway.
so that piece
Oh,
of
wow.
trail was sold to Sobeys about 15 years ago. For their expansion, and it's just that now they are expanding, and so it's never been contiguous for the last 15 years. It's just that it's existed there and they've allowed them to use it, but now they're not. So therein lies another complication with the fact that we have riders that are now literally cut off, and they're trying to find ways to get to our legitimate
Trail.
allowed trail at the top of town, and it is causing some, I'll say, challenges right now that we're all trying to work on between police enforcement, between the two ATV groups and everyone to try to find a solution. There's not an easy solution here. And probably the interim solution is gonna have to be to try to find a section of road for which they are allowed to be on. Because with the base closure, that really threw a wrench into where people travel. And so they've been forced on the roads more so than ever.
And I only mentioned it because I did see that was closed. I thought it was strange, and it got mentioned tonight down at the Hazen Center.
Yeah.
And I said, I'll check into that because I don't know who owns that property, not realizing that it had been bought by Sobeys that long ago.
Yeah. And the National Trail coming from there, OFN has a gate across it.
It's open now, though.
Is it open now? It wasn't the other day.
It was, on this weekend, it was open.
Was it?
Yeah.
I know the back end, I know by the water treatment plant, it's never been open.
Down
Closed.
where you,
It's never, that's always been open.
before you have to cross the highway, that one was wide open and the upper one's wide open.
But the other one's always wide open.
Mm.
Okay, well,
Thank you.
the recommendation is number 2. So. Anyone wanna? Backlash, or you want to stay with that? I mean, there's 4 votes, so I guess that's the ruling. There's recommendation 2. All right. And we'll move on to the recognition of the Stone Gateway Trails. Jackie has that too.
Thank you, your worship. This is just regarding the recognition stone, that council has already approved the placement of. And it's just more, to make sure that council is okay with the designs that were submitted to us by, Jackson. So your 2 options are to, accept the final design or, which is actually option 2, sorry. The first one is to not accept it and ask them to do a different version.
So we've got 1 or 2 options. How many are for option 1?
That seems to help in the picture.
I think it's just the pictures. It's, yeah, I think it's just the way, I think that's more substantial than it is.
To show styles.
Yes. They've done a few of these, so
Where's the right on the top?
so there'll be a piece like this, and then yes, on top of that, you'll see that kind of through here. On the side there, there'll just be a small part here that would have that.
Yeah, can you show all of us, because I'm looking at a slab piece of granite,
Right, so
And then-
I have the same pictures you do, so
and then I'm seeing that.
so
the
this
gateway
would
thing.
be the top part of this.
I think the main question is, do you sit on the writing or not?
You would sit on this part here.
You
Yes,
sit on the
Okay.
writing?
that's my understanding,
Yeah,
And
that's
then there-
the
yeah.
way I
They're
understand.
engraving it into the stone,
into the stone.
which is gonna look like that piece of slab and 2 rocks underneath it.
And then there's also this as well, that would,
That's the writing on the.
no, this would be separate, this would be a stone. There's 2 different things, there's a bench, there's this. And then there's a stone monument with all this, right?
So the writing on the bench is thank you for your service.
Correct.
Oh, hey.
Right.
They're not gonna be sitting on that unless it's crowded, but.
Right.
Yeah. I like two.
Okay, council, one or two? Who wants one? Who wants two? Two it is. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Just on the whole notion of benches, since the weekend was so nice, I decided to go walking a lot, so I walked every day this weekend, thankfully. And I've noticed, and I think we've talked about this before, that the quality of some of the benches that are there are starting to get pretty rough. It's rough and rotting.
Right.
So my question is what is that transition plan of replacing some of those?
So there's no plan to replace them, once they're no longer safe, then they just are removed. They were purchased one time and the cost to actually repair them is more than the original purchase price. The sports facility, Parks and Sports Facility Supervisor, Mr. Brewer goes through and inspects them. So we have taken the backs off, we felt the base was fine, and they go through and we'll take any. Now, there's any that you feel are quite unsightly, we can remove them and let the donor know. But that's where we put that.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, thank you. In terms of the number, not that I didn't count, so how many benches are in there that are wood, like 7 or 8?
Or wooden, sorry?
Yeah,
So all of them there would be the same, there'd be more than that.
because this one's gonna be a concrete slab, I guess that's the reason why I said.
Yes, yeah, so the rest are all wooden there. Right
And
there.
there's what, 7 or 8 of them?
I'd say there's more than that.
I think are 11.
11.
And they-
So,
Yeah, now we've removed some, but.
okay, so I guess that's the reason why for my question. So if the purpose is as they rot and get old, we're just removing them. So we're really not gonna have anywhere for people to sit down other than this.
Not necessarily,
This-
there'll still be some seating in there. Now, if we choose to as a council per town, we can replace them with more concrete ones
In the future.
in the future. I will say that the route is only 2 kilometers.
Yeah.
So we have,
Bar to
more than enough that we need for rest,
Yes.
for rest right now.
For now.
But we found that we really started getting low where they weren't spaced out, and
Okay.
then we would look at something probably similar to the other ones that we have, like by the golf course or something like that.
Yeah.
That we could look at potentially having that, same thing, having someone design and buy them. They are quite a lot more money though than what, Mr. McMillan was doing them, I think, for $500. And you know, no money he was doing them. That's probably the money on doing them versus what, it costs now to have them done.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, sorry, it just is a fun thing. I think that we have more than is needed there now.
Yeah.
But I do think that there will become a point at which perhaps 13 or 15 or however many we have is too many, but we may need 3 or 4 interspersed throughout because
Yeah.
I can certainly walk the 2 kilometers,
Mhm.
thankfully.
Yeah.
But when I was there were certainly people for whom I know needed a rest on occasion, and I saw them using the benches.
So,
So.
no, I totally agree. I'm just saying that when the time comes that we're getting down to only having 5 or 6 cars,
Yeah.
then we would start looking at doing some kind of sponsorship thing for that. I'm actually looking at doing I don't wanna say policy, but a campaign similar to what we do in other areas where you can once a year decide you might want to buy a tree or buy a bench or something and donate it in memory of someone. But not as we were before, that we were taking them as they came, and then if somebody wanted one, we were just putting them into place. I'd rather have a plan where they go, it makes sense, especially with the new facility, there'd be opportunity to have a vertical concrete bench along the new facility, along the trails.
Councilor Dodd?
Thank you, Richard. I'll be quick. It's interesting that you say that, Jackie, because when I'm walking through there, I notice Fayetteville's bench is in darn good shape. And she's one of the originals when we did the gateway, and I think you're right. There were $500 and we were so gung ho to get things in there to make it look nice that anybody who wanted to spend the $500 to put a bench in did, right? And it may not be 11, but they're like Councilor Deputy, when he says they're in bad shape and they've been that way for a
Yeah,
while.
maybe depending on where they were located to get wet, and sometimes people put bird seeds along the back and whatever, so then it created different
Oh, yeah,
issues.
it did.
So.
Tongue in cheek.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
We'll move down to 5C, the Smith subdivision UV treatment, and Dave's got that.
Thank you, Your Worship. Smith Street subdivision UV treatment. With respect to the Smith Street subdivision water treatment plant, town is not in compliance with the requirements outlined in Schedule B of the provincial approval to operate. Section 3802. Non-compliance is due to an insufficient disinfection system and the lack of provincially mandated environmental risk assessment report. For this project, town council previously approved as part of the 2026 capital budget, the purchase of an ultraviolet treatment system in the amount of $90,000 for taxes. Upon further investigation, the initial engineering cost, including the associated design and materials, far exceeded initial budget projections. After exploring several alternative design options, a less sophisticated in-house option has been decided upon. With the purchase of a locally sourced UV system and minor electrical modifications to the best safety requirements, these planned upgrades are estimated at $55,097.47 plus HST. The equipment expense for this project is budgeted under capital account number 526. Revised project quote for the UV system upgrades below the approval budget amounted by some $26,600. Separate of the equipment upgrades, preliminary cost of the mandated ERA report is estimated at $69,900. It is the opinion that any remaining project funds be used to initiate ERA project assessment this year, with the balance to be sourced through other cost savings and or during next year's budget application. Department of Engineering and Public Works recommends the town council approve and accept the wastewater treatment plant for the equipment and electrical upgrades.
Comments, council? Councilor Dodd?
Of course, thank you, Your Worship. Basically doing my math here without the HST. So it looks like you're probably looking for $35,000+ after you take out what's left over, like what's left over, and then that extra $69,900, you're gonna be looking at another $35,000 over and above the 90.
We are looking at talking with the consultant. There were some things we were questioning with their estimate for the ERA.
Okay,
So I have to follow up on that to see if there's any more cost savings there, but these ERAs they're not common. They were at one point, but when they're done, plants don't typically get them a second time type thing. So there's a specialized kind of group that does it, so it's what they're doing.
and I certainly recognize that this subdivision needs some work. Is it going to tie in once we spend that money? Or once council spends that money, it's gonna tie in with the treatment plant and like.
So all this is to take the existing treatment facility and get it up to standard to meet the qualifications of our environmental reasons. And then the ERA is a requirement in the province to have that study done, which has not been done for that facility as of yet.
Okay,
So there's two parts. One, to try and get it technically up to standard. And then two, to get the ERA report done. So then it will be a full compliance with the environment department.
so is our intent when we have the water treatment plant or sewage plant and all that, for them to be tied in with the whole of the town?
Not as of yet. This is an isolated little plant. To do that would be a much bigger project to tie that all together. You'd be talking like lift stations and force mains and things. So that would probably be much further down the road. If there was ever an opportunity to expand the areas, Smith subdivision, that would probably be investigated at that point, but that could be 5, 10, 15 years down the road.
Perfect. Thank you.
So is that warm and fuzzy, council? All righty. Safe. Move 5D, the municipal emergency management plan, and CEO, you have that?
Yeah, I'll take that one, your worship, just a bit of background on this. We have a very old emergency management plan I want to say, I think it was created in the eighties. And although, yes, we've updated the contacts, the rest of it is largely the same, so. We're just trying to get some of that now, modernized together with some new, threat analysis and things like that. Like, one thing that isn't in this manual in the eighties is, for example, wildfire threats and things like that. So, these are things that we've identified that need to be updated. We do obviously have a plan to do a new one. There's another system called ICS, so Incident Command System, which is different from the old sort of emergency measures system. Won't get into the technical X and O's, but we are moving towards that newer system and have been for quite some time. And so we just want to make sure our plan reflects that as well. So really, we had reached out to a couple of different groups, including Transition Solutions, whom we've worked with before on different things. And they gave us a price quote, I guess, to execute this and get it done so that we can get it all upgraded and then start to do our training for staff and yourselves as part of that moving forward. There was room. We had a little bit of funds that we had in general operating reserve for this project in past that we just didn't get done. So this has been on our radar for a few years. And the remaining is going to be allocated through the EMO budget, for which there's an annual budget for. So that's how we'll make up the costs for this new plan, and hopefully everybody will agree to it and to that provide a resolution on Thursday night.
Council Member.
Thank you, Worship. Province has a pretty large EMO staff, do they not?
The province, no.
No?
No. They do have some, what they have is they have some regional people, and they do have their own provincial sort of emergency measures, but every municipality is responsible for their own.
No, I guess my question is, I would have thought there would be EMO expertise in developing a plan within the province. I mean, they were pretty good Riverwatch system. They were pretty good EMO centers type thing. I'm just kind of surprised we have to go out of town to get this kind of thing done, I guess.
Yeah, agreed. Unfortunately, yeah, it's not the case. And I've been trying to push them, and the provincial EMO office is relatively new. I'd say it's only about maybe a decade old. And in that decade, they haven't largely focused on, imparting any wisdom onto any municipalities at all. They are starting to think about that, because I've said, well, it would be great if everybody had a similar template, for example, so that my EMO plan, at least from a template, looks the same as the adjacent communities plan, so that if we ever had to share resources and somebody went in, they don't need to go, well, oh, wildfire for us on page 9, but for them it's on page 17, or whatever the case may be. So, but right now they're not there yet. And our plan is desperately old and already probably a couple years behind, should have been redone. So right now, there isn't that resource to provide to us provincially, other than what they do for us in the event of an emergency, which Usually it doesn't happen unless we declare a state of emergency and then they come in.
Thank you, Councilor Kirkbride.
Have you done, Councilor Bellinger? Are you done?
Yeah,
Thank you, your worship. So I just have a quick question, budget question. Because this was on a radar for a long time. Why wasn't it in our last year's budget? And just, if it was
That's-
radar for
so-
a long time, or was this,
Yeah,
and who's running this? Like, is this something from the fire department or is this something from? Because if this was something that was. Left out of the fire department's budget and then all of a sudden it's just getting added now, that's not right, first of all. But my question, I guess, if it's been on the radar for a long time, like you just said, why wasn't it in the last year's budget? This isn't like-
so it was in probably 2 years ago and that's where that 40,000 comes from.
Okay.
So when we didn't do it, we pushed it into reserve. But now 2 years later, things are just generally more than what they had envisioned them to be. We do have an annual allocation through EMO, which is in the budget for this kind of stuff, which will make up the current 25,000. And so that's how we're putting it together. But the original EMO plan was that operating reserve amount of 40,000, which would have been probably in 2023 budget.
When you say total cost 61,390 excluding travel
Right.
and applicable taxes, like your 15%.
Yeah.
So that means your
Mhm.
taxes are well over $9,000, so now you're already $5,000 short, you're 40 or 25.
So yeah, I mean,
Math, that's not counting track.
we don't pay the full amount in
Okay,
taxes,
that's my
if you
question.
can remember. So we only pay about 71% of the 15%. So there'll be a bit there. The travel part, this group's already coming for orientation, that we've hired them to do some orientation for us and strategic planning as well. So we're saving a little bit on travel costs from that perspective, but all in all, we'll have it that 65, if you will cover everything in terms of the taxes.
Councilor Dodd.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just to clearly understand, Transitional Solution Inc. is going to be putting it together and running the program for the town and for our fire department. So
Correct.
the fire chief and the staff will be sitting in on this, not delivering it.
Yeah, I mean, they'll be part of that process as they build it for
Right.
sure, as subject matter experts in different things, but the reason we're paying them is so that they can actually put the plan together on our behalf. Yeah.
Okay.
Is that warm and fuzzy, council, or? Only four, yeah. Okay. We'll move on now to 5E, the Town of Oromocto 225 annual reports for you. If there's any concerns or issues, let CEO know. And the last one is 5F, the minutes of the 16th of April 2026 regular session draft is in front of you. If there's any issues there, please let Cynthia know ASAP. And on that note, I'll call for a mover from the German. Councilor Von Richter, seconded. Councilor Daw, questions? All in favor? Contrary, motion carried. Who's not gonna be here on Thursday?